Hello, everyone. I welcome you to this informal discussion on the topic Sensing the Synthetic. We gathered here to share some insights from the ongoing festival artistic research side program, which is called Ouroboros Loops. First, maybe I introduce myself so you know who is talking to you. I'm Lenka Hamošová. I'm a co-curator, co-organizer, and a designer of Ouroboros Festival. And when I'm not busy with Ouroboros Festival, I'm an artist and researcher focusing on AI-generated synthetic media in audiovisual production. And I don't know if you heard about our new format, Ouroboros Loops. Maybe I just shortly explain what it is, because it's an event format that we didn't have last 2 years. And it's more in-depth, longer-lasting, kind of like a workshop or an educational research program. And we, as curators, decided to do this kind of program because we thought it's not always enough to spend just 2 or 3 hours with people during workshops. That's what we were doing those 2 years until now. And I mean, it's still a good format, but we also wanted to crave some time for ourselves and people who are interested and spend this time talking about some specific topics. And this year we have 3 Ouroboros loops. One is called algorithmic resistance. Second one is the feral gift. And the third one is our loop. It's called Sensing the Synthetic. And every loop has a slightly different format and length and a way of participation. And our loop is a 4-week-long online program, and it's focused on somatic approach to AI-driven media synthesis and synthetic media analysis. It invites to explore the embedded experience of co-creation with artificial intelligence. We are currently in the 2nd week, so after the festival we have still 2 more weeks, so we cannot share any final outcomes with you at this moment, but we decided, or we wanted to share some insights with you. So what does sensing the synthetic mean? The term synthetic covers outcomes of AI media synthesis, that is the generated media content, which is a result of human interaction with generative neural networks. Synthetic media are fully or partially generated photorealistic images and videos, sounds, human voice, music, illustrations, abstract art, 3D models and 3D avatars, as well as text, whether in the form of an AI chatbot or a whole AI written book. These new examples of media content are causing all kinds of different reactions among people. And a lot of these reactions are emotional. People are sometimes scared of the future with AI and what it means when AI can generate visual content or any kind of media content, basically. How to know what is real and what is fake, what is generated. So it opens a lot of questions about the future of work or about the future of creative practices, and the ways how we will be consuming information, how we will be creating media content, and how our culture will get reappropriated by AI algorithms. And these are just the obvious first reactions. But how do synthetic media affect us when we are consuming them? And how do our bodies respond to the process of their creation? How to define this process, which is seen by some as balanced human and AI co-creation, and by some as an addictive casino slot machine addiction experience. And under the festival theme, which is shedding the skin, we try to reflect on many pressing issues by first and foremost listening to our own bodies, leaving the analytical and critical mind for a bit, and acknowledging our bodily situatedness, which actually defines a lot of our actions. Unlike artificial intelligence, our neural networks are influenced by our physicality and emotions. Synthetic media have been around for too short to be able to evaluate their impact on our society and our perception of information, and more generally of the nature of this new reality to become apparent. To consider their impact in purely theoretical terms, we would exclude other perspectives and forms of intelligence. Synthetic media need to be experienced firsthand, perceived with the whole body. And now I introduce a bit what we are doing in our loop. We engage in deep self-observation during our co-creation with artificial intelligence algorithms. We keep personal journals, using it to track our thoughts and trying to find ways how to describe the emotions and bodily processes that we experience. We also have honest discussions among each other, that we share openly some of the most vulnerable feelings, which I honor the most. And because it's so easy to become and to feel isolated and to undermine the legitimacy of our own personal experiences. And now I would like to introduce the loop participants. We have a freelance graphic designer, dancer, artificial intelligence enthusiast, Alina Matejová, which is sitting here. Then we have artist, photographer, independent researcher, Martina Šimkovičová, who is joining us from Zoom, from Bratislava. We have a software developer and artist, Alexa Steinbrück, a philosopher, lecturer, writer, and an artificial intelligence researcher, Dita Malečková. And we also have two other loop participants which are not sitting here with us, media designer, AI artist, and researcher Sky Heidekamp, and a photographer and a noisemaker, Natalia Zajačíková. So each of our panelists sitting here have a previous experience with human and AI co-creation, whether in artistic or research context. And I will give space to everyone to introduce their project or themselves, so you understand a bit from where they are coming, and then we proceed with the discussion. And before that, I almost forgot. I wanted to show you what I mean by synthetic media. This is just one visual and very practical example from Ouroboros Festival. So when I was making visuals for the festival, and I was thinking, how do I communicate the events that haven't happened yet? I decided to use the text-to-image neural network. So maybe you heard of the tool DALL-E, or now recently Stable Diffusion. So I just simply wrote in the text prompt that it's an opening, a festival opening of Ouroboros Festival, and people are gathering around campfires in a dogs gallery in Prague. And the left image is what the algorithm generated, and on the right you see what really happened or how it looked like. And when we were also together talking about it, yeah, I don't know who said it from you, but that it's actually a bit like the reality is less exciting, or just like, the campfires are smaller, or there's less. And I can maybe show two more examples. This was when I tried to visualize the interspecies meditation by Ruth Catlow that happened yesterday. So the generated image is on the left, and on the right you see the reality. And then the last example I have here, this was, I was trying to generate how it's going to look like when the feral gift exchange is going to take place here in this empty pool. And I also used the word more than human in the prompt, and it generated some plants and animals, except people. And I think it's interesting that, also in reality people are sitting. And now I'm not sure whether it's not like the feedback loop, like someone saw this image and then we are adjusting the reality according to to this. Yeah, so that's just for the start, and now I give word to Alina. And
is it working? Yes, cool. Yes. So, hello everyone. My name is Alina Matejeva, and I came here from Brno. From Faculty of Arts, Brno University of Technology. And I'm here maybe because of one of my projects, which is called Project Humane. And it's a platform and a conference focusing on intersection of design, art, humanities, and artificial intelligence. And we are focusing on education, general public, open the discussion between more people than just the hard scientists. And also we are preparing a third year of this conference, and it will be in 2 weeks in Brno. So I would like to invite you to my city. And also my second thing, what I'm doing in the context of artificial intelligence is my PhD project. Its name is Artificial Intelligence as an Artifact of Visual Culture. And my point of view in this is that the human-like intelligence is not, should be like, okay, let's back slower. AI is also called, or sometimes called, like human-like intelligence, but it's shouldn't be like human-like appearance, because these pictures which we see here, they are from all the parts around the AI, not just like thinking, but also from the science and from pop culture. And the problematic things around this is that these anthropomorphizations around AI can mislead us as in the way how to understand this technology in the wider context. For example, artificial intelligence can do more than we can do in our lives. So we should understand this technology in a different way than just like something human-like. So in my point of view, these pictures can mislead us somewhere, and we just need to maybe focusing on some kinds how to better understand this technology. So this is my PhD project right now, and there is something about it. For example, for me, it was like really interesting to find the definition of artificial intelligence which suits to my project well, and it's by Benjamin H. Breton, who is talking about artificial intelligence as same as technology as an idea. So that's the point what I'm working, or it was like turning point of my thinking around artificial intelligence, because that's the point what I'm thinking about, like that's not only technology, and we should research it more, not just in the hard sciences. So it's maybe a little bit about explanation of my PhD. And I would like to say that this is something how artificial intelligence should look or should be presented. And this is scheme made by Vladan Joler and Kate Crawford. and it's about the system Amazon Echo, I think. And the important thing here is that in the scheme, artificial intelligence consists from 3 parts, and it's like human culture, data, and something like geological processes and the sources of the planet Earth. So this is something what I like to introduce, like how artificial intelligence should in the internet, not just like these pictures here. So thank you for attention.
Thank you so much. And now I will ask Dita to introduce herself, and meanwhile I
Thank
will
you much.
prepare.
I prepared some presentation, but actually it's too long for this short introduction.
And do you want the slides?
I don't think so, actually. So I will just present myself briefly,
Okay.
and then we can continue with this presentation during my workshop I will have later. And so I just say a few words about me. I think it's enough for a moment. And yes, I called it curiously useful mirror because I am working with neural networks for several years now. And I have to say I joined this conversation or this group last minute or later even, because I discovered that the theme of this year's festival is, roughly speaking, emotions and synthetic content, which really interests me. I'm not a hard science person, and as I experience this synthetic content is quite personal, I would say. And I really explore the emotions that are related to the processes and the contents that are generated. We, with my colleague Jan Till, we created a digital philosopher and digital writer, and by these projects we somehow entered the public space of, let's say, of Czech Republic, but maybe broader even. With a digital philosopher, we worked with the students of Charles University, and we really allowed them to somehow revive the philosophers they liked and to produce new texts by them, which was, yes, kind of a gamification of contemporary philosophy classes. But at the time, it was 2019, we, or I, for the first time used neural networks to generate content, and I have to say that it was really a turning point for me. It was really surprising because the outputs were quite convincing, and at the time I also created this digital twin of mine. So I didn't use a text by philosophers, but my own text. And then really I discovered that this is personal, because this digital twin of mine, I fall in love immediately, and I I can spend so much time with her because she was so original and smart, And no, I'm quite serious because I was expecting something, mechanical, something that it's predictable and easy and so on. But the outcomes were, for me, they had this surprising quality. And not only because I think was part of myself, but also that it was a synthesis of a human in mine, but also these cultural contents that I use as a data sets, we can say. And so there was also this machine part of myself. And during the time, it was quite difficult to say what part is myself and what part is machine. And with a digital writer, we actually, for a first series that we made for a Czech radio, we generated text solely by neural networks, and we waited a little bit for the reactions. And yeah, the main reaction was that it was fear, actually, speaking about emotions. Most of the people were afraid that they will, or if they were writers or some kind of designers, they were afraid to lose their jobs. So we tried to convince them that it's not about losing their jobs, but about the evolution of a process of creation. And as a proof, we created the second theory of digital writer, where Czech writers cooperated with neural networks. And I think that, or I believe that the outcomes are quite convincing, they're amusing, and even the writers, they really, or they seem to like this kind of cooperation. So as you know, the organizers and Lenka told you, I'm a philosopher, so I'm thinking about these processes. I'm also a writer, and I call myself independent AI researcher, which means that I really like to work with neural networks and observe these contents, how they change, how they influence us, and how do we feel about them. So I'd like to discuss this topic, and I hope that the outcomes will be interesting.
Thank you very much. And I want to invite people who are interested in writing and the text text experiments with AI, that Dita is having a workshop after this discussion at 6:30, so you can join and experiment with her. And now I would like to give word to Alexa. And I will...
Hello, my name is Alexa Steinbrück. I'm from Germany, and I'm an artist, programmer, and researcher, educator. And during the last 2.5 years, I've been running or co-running a lab for AI and robotics at an art school in Germany. It's in Halle, University of Art and Design, Burg Giebichenstein. And so it was part research and part teaching or educating, and part of the education was a big topic that's very important for me, which is AI demystification, so explaining how, on a light technical level, explaining how machine learning works, explaining how neural network works. But also what we really wanted to do is to show the students the potential of machine learning for creative practices in all the possible areas. So it could be for image generation, text generation, detecting stuff, building interactive systems upon this technology. And we even have a podcast, it's called Towards Co-Creation, because we are interested in understanding these kind of processes that happen when people now start to create with these tools that are a little bit different than the tools we used before, but we still call them tools. At least I love to call them tools, because that already demystifies the idea that you're working together with an AI as if it was an autonomous system. And so when we started 2.5 years ago, there was, I don't know what the state of the art was in terms of generative machine learning models. I think even GPT-2 was not even out there. I forgot when it started. So it was a kind of a different period, and then the company OpenAI just started to bombard us with these amazing tools. And amazing is already kind of an emotion that you can feel, or at least it's already in this list. And then finally, when DALL-E came out, this text-to-image system, then I had the idea that everybody was talking about this and everybody was using it, or if they could not use it, they used the open source cousin of it. And I started to realize that there's a lot of emotion, like Lenka said, first of all, about this technology. So it starts by amazement, like, for example, people talking about the revolution of creativity, that now everybody's able to create media without being talented or without like using drawing pencils or so. So everybody is able to create images. That's amazing. But then you also heard these voices saying, like getting really angry and saying, you know, this is going to steal jobs. What's the future of the digital illustrator profession? And then this whole discussion about data sets, stealing like works of others and not respecting copyright. So when you scroll through Twitter or whatever, this is kind of discussed. It's a very heated debate. And this is why I realized, okay, emotions really play a role. But what I'm interested in particularly is the emotions that you as the creator have during these interaction with these systems. And I started this project. The name is Emotional Glossary for Creative AI. Or actually, it's different. It's a glossary of emotional terms during co-creation with AI algorithms. So it's about a glossary, because I love glossaries and dictionaries. I love words, and I think this is a good starting point in like starting with my emotions and then going further and making this a collaborative effort in a crowdsourced project and asking other people to share their emotions. And then even going further, asking them, when exactly did you feel this emotion? During which part of your creative process? Which tool were you using? Which interface were you using? What was your goal? Why do you think you felt this emotion? So I think this is a undiscovered territory, and it's very important because the emotions are already there. We cannot ignore them. People get really upset or amazed about this technology. And my goal with this project is not only to list, categorize the emotions, but also to link them to, technical terms. So maybe I can give an example. And it's really just, it's a work in progress. I just started this. Like in my head, I started this months before, but like that this is now a website, it's like 1 week old or something. So there are a lot of gaps and empty parts. So one entry, for example, would be amazement, which is not opening for some reason. I'm not amazed. I don't know, do we have internet? Yeah, we should have.
Yeah, it seems the Zoom is running, but maybe it's too slow.
By the way, that's not a good way to advertise for this tool, but this is called Obsidian, and it's a tool for nonlinear note-taking. So it kind of is based on the idea that our own thinking is not nonlinear, so every idea is connected to another idea. Voila. Okay. So amazement would be one feeling that I have, for example, and this is an entry that I did based on my own subjective feeling. So I feel amazed while I use generative machine learning models because I'm realizing that I have suddenly access to this huge collective knowledge. So to like knowledge or perception of millions of other people. So kind of, I don't want to say humanity, but let's call it a collection or a group. So that is one kind of feeling I often have. Another would be fear of missing out. So there is this term FOMO. That's good, yeah. And I have this feeling of fear of missing out when I'm interacting with the latent space. And the latent space is, in machine learning or generative machine learning, a very important concept because it's a mathematical concept. It's a reduction of the space, basically. So every point in this space is kind of a reproduction of the data set. But it's not the space like we're used to. It's not 4-dimensional, it's not 3-dimensional. It's like thousands of dimensions, which makes it very hard to visualize, for example. So I'm also interested in how can these interfaces for latent space look like if what we have is just a computer screen. So what we have is maybe 2D, 3D. You can make some tricks when you're building in the web platform, but still we will never be able to visualize these thousands of dimensions. And also we will never be able to experience all these data points in this latent space. So there's always, when I'm creating, this feeling of, there will be so much interesting stuff in some corners of this latent space that I will never experience. And then I think, okay, I will go there. I will spend 3 hours just making random samples, and then at some point I will have enough. But it's not enough. So it's also dealing with this technology means that you just have to stop somewhere, and there's no way of being in control of everything or knowing everything, which can result in a fear or specific emotions. Another emotion. I don't know if we have more time.
Yeah, just give us one more.
Okay. Or that's maybe a dark one, but it came up during our loop actually, is the emotion of guilt. So it could be the guilt that by using image generation systems, you're not a true artist. What is a true artist? It's another entry in this dictionary. Or you're feeling guilt regarding the bias that's in these data sets, that there is a lot of discrimination, a lot of like ugly stuff. Or you're feeling guilt because of the filtering or the censoring that is done in order to react upon this bias. So these are just some examples, and I'm inviting you to join this project and share the emotions you have with this dictionary, be it with your name or anonymously or with a pseudonym. I would love you to take part in this. Thank you.
And thank you. And you can join the project either, like if you're here in the physical space, there are QR codes on the walls leading you directly to the survey where you can put your entry, leave your entry, or on the website of our festival, where you find Alexa's project, there is this survey form is already embedded there. And now we can give space to Martina in Zoom.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Great, fantastic. I wish you a lovely afternoon from Bratislava. Unfortunately, I could not come in person due to health conditions, but I'm very happy to see you in the pool and to see also that simulation of myself there. I'm a photographer and a visual artist and a co-founder of Robota Center for Advanced Studies, together with Christian Lukic. Since 2018, in Robota, we explore the ways technology is shaping society and how it changes the very substance of being human. And depending on the project we work on, the scope of research goes from algorithmic governance, automatization, AI, the idea of nature, what is the nature today, and the questions of work, creativity, and pleasure, and that we need to analyze both the results of technological impact both on individuals as well as on collectives, and that we should analyze that. Most recently, I started teaching at the Faculty of Education at the Comenius University in Bratislava, which brought to my practice a very interesting momentum, because I teach people who will be teaching children and young people. So the most interesting challenge for me is not just to teach the basics of photography, but how to evaluate our visual world and how to help people be guides to the youngest members of the society who are seeing but are not that far to verbalize, articulate, and conceptualize what they see. So also in terms of generated images, this brings a very spannend, very interesting challenge to how to educate the visual literacy and the orientation in simulated and synthetic imagery. So that's far from my background, and my path to neural networks as a means of co-creating images comes from my photographic practice, and at this point I would like to share with you two projects. So the first project, can you see now my screen, right?
Well, it's I guess it's loading. I see the browser, but not the content. And also, there is this blocked field that is probably your Zoom interface. So if you move the...
And what about now?
No change.
No change. Interesting.
Yeah, it's right there where you have your cursor.
Wait a second. Now
Something is happening. Maybe it just takes time till it reloads.
I believe it takes time, but can you still hear me in the meantime? Fantastic. I think now we have it. So
it's this. Now this gray rectangle is still there in the middle of your presentation.
Yeah, I will try to keep the screen share as short as possible so that we are not glitched in this way. So when speaking about emotions and neural networks and images, which is specifically my field of work, I became aware of the fact that when the public release of neural networks generated images systems to the general public appeared, it happened in the middle of 2021 of almost 1.5 years of pandemic setups, meaning lockdowns, limitations of physicality, of collective consciousness in terms of meeting. And our living of events had been drastically reduced to visual signs, so to say. And this work, which I was photographing subconsciously during those 2 years, was called New Not Normal, and it's a book of photographs which show, so to say, the backstage and the offstage of cultural events which happened during the pandemics, where I was searching or finding situations which were in a way ambiguous, which were speaking about alienation, which had a very strange cohabitation of technological and recording setups and the limited human. So I'm speaking of this because I believe this was the start of my journey or with neural networks, was the observation of real life. The aim of these images was not to be a certain propaganda for a certain view. It was an observational photographic project which was dealing with the physicality of the events, and also is a combination of photographs of mass testing in Slovakia, which basically was meant to test the corona status of the whole nation. I consider this event to be also very crucial in terms of the way we believe and use and utilize images, because our ways of living had been strongly connected to the visual information of positive or negative tests, right? And this project started in 2020, and in 2021 I continued the quest of sensing the outside with the question of what is the inside. So we perceive the outside as being unsafe, but we thought that our homes are safe spaces to live, to be spared from the virus. But the more I thought about that, the more and more I understood that home is less of a safe space as it used to be. And it became a space of collecting or even harvesting data of us. That in the pandemic setting, a strange merge of Internet of Bodies and Internet of Things happened, I realized that there is a huge amount of Internet of Things devices which are not so much thematized neither in the topic of ecology or safety or needed, or if they are needed, they're just produced and consumed. And from this point, I started a very paranoid setup. What if the home listens to us? What happened? What happens? Where goes the data? So our very private lives are scattered all over the world, over servers, over third parties. And together, all these data can build up wonderful pattern of life, data set which could be analyzed and interpreted in ways which we might not fancy. The more and more I read the real stories through the internet, I started working with clip creation, and I was feeding the clip system with my own images. So this is clip generated imagery trained on my very own images. So there was already a loop of co-creating with my images and clip, and after all, I used explicitly only the images from the clip image generation, and none of the images you see was photographed in a classical way. And the project consists of this imagery of safe and convenient home, and of a collection of research and stories about real usage and real data leakages of the data collected. So the project is called Affective Metadata, and I perceive it in a way to be a closed project, but I have several other ideas which I evolve with Stable Diffusion at the moment. And we've been also discussing one of them in the loops part, which I consider to be a very strong and fruitful space and process we are on the board of. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. And yeah, thank you all for explaining how you got to work with neural networks, and also explaining the point of view of the creative part in this co-creation. Although, yeah, some people might argue. And I would now maybe initiate a discussion with the first provocation, and that's we are using this word co-creation, but is it a good term? Should it be called co-creation? Yeah, because it kind of implies that the second part has its own agency, and it's like entity that can collaborate in the same way as we do. So I'm now curious what your opinions are. Who wants to say something?
I can start. I can start by describing our previous discussion we have actually when I was precisely speaking about neural networks and artificial intelligence as a she and as something I really communicate with. And we already actually discovered that there are differences in our approaches. I think we are discussing that you don't believe actually in artificial intelligence as a something or as you were describing your attitude where actually you don't like when people are speaking about artificial intelligence, especially this general artificial intelligence as some kind of super intelligence that's getting alive or something, and we can really discover it while it's being born to our world, and so on and so on. And I just wanted to say that I do understand that this is it's my friend calls neural networks or artificial intelligence statistics on steroids. That really, they are mathematical functions, and yes, I know that, but at the same time, there may be two things I want to mention, and it's really just part of discussion. First thing is that I really like to study complex systems, and I somehow felt that the level of complexity of neural networks is so high that it can generate something we can call, self-organization. Of course, it's not a consciousness, but it's a mind of a kind. And the second note is that even when we are creating something, it's not fully conscious process. We are dealing with the subconscious and unconsciousness, and it's not just us. We are actually who is part of the process. So somehow when I create, there are these parts of myself which are hidden, which are deep, and which are not only myself. They are somehow collective, because I have this inspiration from artworks that I consumed before that actually became part of me. Or, I don't know, my dreams, and in the dreams I can see clearly that they are experiences from external world, informations that became part of this, I don't know, cognitive space or latent space of myself. So this is actually already a process of creation, which I think it's understood as a true creation, a human one. But we can see clearly that we are not the only agency, that the consciousness, the individual consciousness is not the only agency there. So I would be probably the one who would less or more believe that this is truly a process of co-creation, although I understand that the artificial intelligence we are dealing with is not a living person or individuality as we do understand it.
Yeah, I think agency is the key word, because when you say there is some agency, that also triggers the question of free will. So I think the term agency is also not well defined, but I find it hard attributing agency or intelligence to a system just because it's complex. I don't know, it's a philosophical question. I'm sure smart people have thought about this. But I mean, there's a field called explainable AI trying to achieve exactly that, breaking up the black box, making the decision-making of these systems explainable. So would that then mean when it's explained, then it's less complex, and then it's also not intelligent? I don't know, I'm confused. But yeah, that's why I'm also a bit skeptical about the term co-creation, because it implies that there is another. Like, I think the term co-creation is much older. It comes from practices between people. So you're not the only person designing something. It's a co-creative process with other human beings, human brains. So it comes from this direction. So applying this to the field of machine, like AI art or machine learning based art, implies that there's another being, which I think there's not. On the other hand, thinking that these systems are trained on these huge data sets, which are made by people, people that we don't know, whose work and intentions and knowledge of the world somehow is injected into this data, makes it some kind of co-creation, even though we don't need to know the other one, which I'm sure makes many people angry, because they're saying, I haven't been asked if I wanted to co-create with you. It was just scraped by this company, and they didn't take care of copyright or intentions of artists. So it's a complicated term.
If I just, I don't know, and then it's yours. I totally agree, actually, and this is interesting to know that behind these neural networks there are people, in its data sets. They are human data sets, actually. But another note or idea I have that even before there was a co-creation, but not only between people. I mean, you can get an inspiration from, I don't know, waves or sky or, I don't know, complex system of animal lives. So, of course, it's not a co-creation in a sense that you have two conscious beings or agencies, but there's a complex system you can resonate with, and you can take an inspiration from, and you can take even a part of this process or the dynamics to your own process of creation. So in this sense, it may be another way how to co-create, and not only with humans, but with some other, let's say, complex systems, maybe.
Martina wanted to say something.
Yes, I'm afraid the glitch is kind of taking out my hand, so I don't know if it's visible or not that I want to say something. In terms of co-performance or co-creation, as Dita mentioned, there is always, or also Alexa, there is always someone behind these systems. So we can be asking ourselves if the interface itself is a subject, but also we could ask what is the agenda of those who provide us with this interface? Speaking, what's the agenda of the companies, of the research teams, of the individuals who offer us this possibility of creation? And in which way is then our brain and intuition in terms of creating used for further learning, monetizing, whatever we could think of? How is this bioenergy used? So in that sense, I could subscribe to the fact that it is co-creation, but there are different agendas of different players. Unfortunately, there is no one from the developers side of the big tech with us tonight. So we need to keep this question open.
Maybe I can continue. In my point of view, it was kind of funny because it was like 2 weeks ago, I think, yes. I was hanging around DALL-E, and yes, it was like that, definitely. And I was really curious about the context and the relationship between the text and the image. And I realized that in my point of view, there's something really performative, something really like conceptual, something comes from 60s, for example, like Fluxus. And that memory of these famous things led me to the idea that maybe in my point of view, something like co-performance is more precise, because I see, like, when I'm looking at some artificial art or something made in combination of the system and the artist, I'm always thinking around like more in the notion like performative act. Like not just about the artifact of the, like what the system did or how we work with it, or not, yes, what the system did, but how it was made. And it's something what is really interesting for me. And I'm still thinking that it's not just about the artifact, like it's really processual thing, something wider. And maybe this is one point why I pick my hand for term co-performance.
Maybe what's fitting or underlying this performance thing is that while interacting with the systems, you're also making a performance. So when you take prompt engineering, for example, so like tweaking the input text in order to generate some images, you kind of make weird stuff that you would usually not write, because maybe you learn some tricks on the internet. People were saying, add this to the end of your prompt, then you will get these and these results. So you're making kind of, you're like acting, or you're performing and you're catering to the system in a way, because you kind of assume that it will get you then what you want. So it's kind of, you're like performing for this system, yeah.
Yeah, and it reminds me a series of workshops that I did during the last year, where I was interested in creating this kind of a feedback loop between what a person or the human wants to generate. So there's this intentional vision, like, oh, I want to see an image of a sea and sunset, and then what the neural network gets you as an outcome. And then I didn't allow the participants to start anew, but they had to continue from what they got. And then if they were not satisfied with the outcome, so it was not matching their vision, they had to like try to modify the prompt in such a way so they are slowly getting to their visualization, or like the vision that they imagined at first. And I don't have answer for this question, that I'm still asking myself, whether they are like in this process, whether we as humans are really modifying or like bending the process towards what we wanted, or whether somewhere in between we start losing ourselves in it and maybe starting making some kind of compromises. And this is really hard to separate. That's something I was trying to observe on myself, also like during our loop experiments. And I need to be honest to myself that no, it's not always what I wanted. I often get derailed from the initial idea. And maybe it's good, because it might be like enhancing my imagination. And also some, like the head of Midjourney company, and he says like that these tools they made these tools accessible to people because they believe they can enhance human imagination and change the world probably with that. And so maybe it is enhancing the imagination and moving us more towards some concepts that we would never otherwise thought of. But maybe we are just getting like amused by these surrealist combinations that we see in the images or in the text or here in the sounds, and maybe it doesn't have anything common or anything at all with imagination. So I don't know. I don't have answer on that for that. I don't know if any of you want to comment, or maybe you experienced some other kind of tension during your co-creation or co-performance.
I'm also not sure this is enhancing the imagination, but we really should go to the definition of imagination maybe. And I just think that it's endless somehow. And we need some solid points or media on experience or memory. We take just starting point and then we continue. Usually, I think we can discuss it. And it's not just a case of this powerful media of neural networks. I think every medium gives us only limited possibilities. But without these limitations, how we can get anything, actually? I mean, if you can do anything you can imagine, what would you start with? Or you need something to start with. And but this is, of course, that the industry will claim that they are enhancing the imagination. And I even believe they do it. But it's I would be suspicious, even though I love work with neural networks, because let's say the machine vision we get, it's so influencing that it changes actually what we call imagination. So I already told my colleagues that I spotted actually the neural networks output in my dreams already. That I had this choice between the four images, four generated images as we can get from DALL-E. I had it in my dream, and it was so natural. So I told myself, okay, I want a monster. Will I take this one or that one? It's too scary, maybe. So, is it enhancing or limiting the imagination? It's I don't know.
Now we know that you spend too much time with DALL-E. Yeah, Matja?
I see Martina, yes.
I also am adding to the people who have haunting dreams with neural networks generated material. I guess it's also because I generate always in the evening and in the night before going to sleep, then I can't sleep well because I get all those shiny, strange personage with lovely backgrounds and great bokeh in my dreams, and then I wake up and I have that FOMO that, okay, I didn't generate this and I saw it, but I couldn't sleep well, so I don't know if I want to go to sleep more, to see more images, or to relax. So yes, Dita, I feel you with that. It feels at the same time natural and unnatural. But also to the terms of co-performance or co-creation, I think the keyword mentioned earlier today, which is collective knowledge, is also, I think, vital for the image or the understanding of photography. Because whenever I generate the images which are photography-like, which look more or less lens-based, with perspective and some optical references to lens, I ask myself, what do we see? Is this the reference of a reference of a reference to some reality somewhere far from the point where we have the image and to the point where we have that data set? And how much is this a deception, and how much should we see it not just as an artwork, but as a simplification of some knowledge, of the collective knowledge. But for me, the very strange feeling of deception somehow remains. In terms of reference to reality, it reminded me of the old stories when the Native Americans and or African tribes, or I think it was several occasions, saw first time people photographing, people taking images, that they were scared that this steals their soul. But of course, the positivism trained researchers and West photographers said, no, it just takes a visual, physical appearance, and that's it. There's nothing like a soul that can be depicted. But now we are almost 200 years later, and now we see that the connection of the physical presence or visuality of a person and their inner psychological life is there. And maybe the native tribes were more right than we thought in the modernist times.
It was really scary with a flickering image of you, appearing on a monitor. So we are entering the scary part of it. No,
it's an irony.
I totally agree. I just wanted to mention that yes, before I saw this generated content in my dreams, I also used, yes, the dog knows. I also actually in my dreams took photographs, and I realized later that in the dreams it was a way how to memorize the images, because they were ever changing, and to have a memory of the image, I use the medium of a camera in a dream. So again, there are medias that allow us to create a static image that we can take, we can share, we can memorize. Because otherwise, I think we can discuss it. The imagination is a process, and these images, the stable images, are just cuts actually from the process somehow.
Maybe my point to the imagination. I was thinking, I'm always curious what will happen in the field of art or art after some important or new or interesting technology came. Because, for example, when photography was invented, painters were crazy, and we know it, and it brought a lot of changes into the paintings. For example, from the realistic imagination, or not just imagination, but realistic visuality to the abstract one. So I'm really curious what will happen right now, because, for example, I think that there will be something like really simplifying, or something really like maybe new suprematism or something like that. Because when I see, again, DALL-E things, it's really like between surrealism, Dadaism, things like that. The connection of the inputs are really crazy sometimes, but yes, it depends on the text. But in my point of view, I'm really curious what will happen in art. For example, in painting, how the artist will be reacted with their imagination, if there will be something like switch to new minimalism or things like that, or if they are working with these kinds of image, like reacting or repainting them in their fields, like on the walls or with the colors, not just like in, it's still image in the computer. So how they will react, it's my question for all of artists which are right now a little bit angry, I think.
Yeah, there is like Twitter is full of artists who are undergoing really deep and existential crises at the moment, facing these generative neural networks, being able to generate more impressive outcomes. But the question is, like, are those outcomes really more impressive? Like, maybe it's just a short-term hype, and after a year or two, we will get bored of this new visuality, or So let's see. I would not start cutting the wrist. Matthew, you want to?
I want to join you with the topic of hype, because I think it's good to step one level up with speaking of hype, and realize that we still live in a way in a turbo-capitalistic world where you need to bring impression, bring AVE, because then you gain your social capital, maybe you gain your money through selling your fantastic NFT. So the hype is, I believe, connected with some entrepreneurship and the constant insecurity if you are worthy or valuable enough, which is measured in attention. In that sense, I believe we still live in some kind of Guy Debord société du spectacle. We need to bring wow effect all the time. So the question of skill had been, I think, in question at least since 30, 40 years, when we could work with computer and create digital painting and renders, but of course this became more accelerated. So I think this is also in a way some symptom of capitalism, right?
Yeah, and when I'm like also thinking while listening, I have to I just realized that probably because of this, like thinking what will be in the future, and like I'm not afraid of losing my job, and I'm sure I will just start doing something else if what I'm doing will be obsolete. But I just realized that probably the reason why I started working from the perspective of the body is caused by this like feeling that, okay, why would I create a collage if I can just like generate it, right? And I sometimes feel completely demotivated from creating any kind of visual content. And now the visual identity of Ouroboros is an exception, but I didn't do anything like that for months. And yeah, I just now maybe want to shift the discussion more towards the embodied experience, because that's what makes me happy, or gives that when I realize I have the body and these systems don't. And often having a body is perceived as a disadvantage, because you have all these kinds of emotions and feelings that not all of them are pleasant, and this society often triggers more of the unpleasant ones. There is a lot of anxiety now. It's very common among people, and I think this is a nice opportunity to start like valuing the body and like starting working with the body a bit more. And I'm curious whether this is going to influence the direction of fine art, let's say. Maybe we will see more of the performative embodied artworks, like really trying to give more priority to the emotional and like the physicality of our bodies. I don't know, but that's something that I was thinking about. And in line of this thought, I would like to ask everyone here, do you have any kind of particular physical or emotional experience related to co-creation or co-performance, or however you want to call it, with AI algorithms, something that you noticed on yourself, maybe also like during these last 2 weeks when we decided to observe ourselves more. Did something emerge?
As a graphic designer, I'm always like thinking, okay, that's let's say quickly. These generated pictures are always like illustration, something what can lead to another usage. But as a graphic designer, I feel a little bit safe, according to
really,
yes, because. You know, we must deal with the layout of texts, preparation for print. For example, making a book is something which is connected with the really material world. And all these things just brings me like idea about like, okay, it's like these generative systems, artificial intelligence, DALL-E, whatever. It's really useful tool, or another software, or let's say it's something like that. But in my point of view, the human touch in graphic design is something essential. Even in context of communication with the client, for example, I saw one project. It's like artificial designer, graphic designer, and it's from Moscow, I think. I'm not sure about the name. It's something like Vladimir.
Yeah, I don't know the name, but
it also has like artificial persona. Like it's something what also has, I think, Instagram profile or Behance profile, something like that. And the outputs or outcomes are kind of boring, and I don't feel like this is something what is working well in the real world. Yes, thank you. So it was like a point.
Yeah, and I don't understand why these systems are often just appreciated as like end-to-end systems. You have an idea, you put it in, you get out the final artwork, bam, it's there, it's the final product. Whereas instead they could be just one tool in your own personal creative tool chain, or maybe just at the beginning when you're looking for inspiration. Why should they be this like super perfect tool that gives you the output? So. And I think I'm waiting for more interfaces and more integrations of this capacity into already existing systems, which is, I think, being worked on, like integration into Photoshop or wherever, where you can change specific areas of an image and describe what you want to have by words. Yeah, I forgot.
Matja wants to say what she was. Yeah, you have your hand. No? No? Okay.
So okay, just a note. I'm glad you feel safe. I'm really glad. But you know, I don't know. In 2019, there was an AI-generated movie, and it meant actually that AI-generated screenplay, and humans made the rest. And last year there was an AI-generated movie by Netflix bots, and they made the entire movie, you know. So maybe, but I'm glad you feel safe, and you're perfectly right. Of course, I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Yeah, but still, that was probably an open-ended project. But given as a graphic designer, you have a client who has this very specific task, and there's this specific use case, and you want to have something fitting, and I think one of the big advantages of these systems is that they surprise us, that usually you have something in your mind, in your own imagination, but you get out something different, which can be nice as one iteration and then go next and look for something else. But again, it's not these end-to-end systems that here is your client desire, put it into the system, product output, bam, money back. I haven't heard these cases that really exists.
Yeah, definitely. I also have experience as a graphic designer, and it requires. I think good design in general requires a lot of empathy, and yeah, some kind of ability to sense things that are not said out loud. And for me, I think this is really hard to encode in some tools like that. And now I forgot what I wanted to say. Sorry.
And also I had one little idea when you mentioned what will happen also in painting. Maybe there will be more, in the future, there will be more attention to how the things are made. Like maybe the next painting thing will be like performative painting, something like that, a combination of something where the human is the actor, when the human show us the real skills in these things. Maybe that will be some way how to re-celebrate the old things, also in these things.
And now, Matja, you want to say something or still?
Yes, now I really wanted to say something in this case. In terms of embodiment, it's still for me interesting to see that despite the level of digitality, which I believe not only graphic design involves, but also photography. As you say, there's still this fine immaterial empathy, mental work, which can't be mechanically replaced by a tool. And also, there is a question like if we would use the neural networks generation tools as part of the process, or increase the level of its involvement? There is also a question: how would we still be embodied in our work, and if what is the place also of our motoric and fine motoric skills to stay in touch, so to say? We indirectly can see how people write less with their hands, but there's also the research on the fact how much the handwriting affects our brain activity. So that very fact that we at least make some scribbles, make notes, make sketches, is also in a way a brain massage. So if we are more connected to the keyboards, what happens in the long term with our brains? And our brains are hardware which can't be changed radically in 20, 30 years. It's hardware which requires thousands or millions of years to evolve radically. So I think it will be very interesting to see the radical change of interfaces. And also in terms of what we generate, if we feel offended as creators or unsafe. When I was in the art histories class in my at my university, no, it was even in the college. Sorry. Point was that we were taught that many of the Greek and Roman sculptures which were made are not actually taught in the schools, because they were that kind of production which will be labeled as not suitable for work, right? So also a great deal of the first photographs was basically slightly erotic or even pornographic production of the 19th century. And when I put yesterday night the Stable Diffusion hashtag in Twitter, you can only guess what was the most results which popped up, right? So I think it's important to speak about what people want to see, what they want to feed themselves with, and these things might not be changing so fast. I have an impression that what we discuss now is maybe a very focused, very specific, high-level topic, but there is also the mainstream where the tool enters the stream and its users, and they will very often might be creating the stuff just for themselves, for their digital shelves.
Yeah, and then another thing is how these outcomes of the specific content that you mentioned, how they affect us or how we perceive them. And yeah, do you have any your own experiences? I don't know, maybe just to give an example, until just recently, synthetic or generated human face was definitely in a uncanny valley, terms, really unsettling, and something was just off. But the StyleGAN 3 outcomes are, people just cannot say whether it's real or not. It's just like normal human face. And but still, after I trained my own neural network, this one in the inside, on synthetic media images, I cannot see through even these bulletproof outcomes that are still they are generated, but they look completely normal human faces. Something is still off, but it's like the threshold is getting smaller and smaller, and for me it's the look in the eyes. And maybe it's because the eyes are always in the center, or maybe it's a matter of alignment. And maybe I see it because I work a lot with visuals, so my visual literacy is really more above the standard. but still there is something weird that remains in the images. And maybe talking about porn, there were these ideas that it would, like if we would generate porn, then women don't have to suffer and work in porn videos. But I think it will still not be the same, because it didn't happen. Like it, I think it's part of what triggers the imagination and the whole arousal is that that it took place. It's a documentation of reality, and the synthetic reality, it's just synthetic.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to react it before that the human reaction to improvement of artificial intelligence is getting back to body, to collective, and so on. But with the porn theme, it really changes the situation. And I just wanted to mention that with the eyes and the differences you can still see on a generated images, the improvement is really fast actually. I think I'm really also a good observer, I would say, but it was yesterday or today even, I saw a first generated image of a human face and it really looked real. I think for the first time, because before you always could say, okay, the eyes are a little bit, I can see the differences, I still can see the differences, but I think that it changes, but...
It reminded me of an article I read that said, how do you find out that it's a deep fake in a video conference, because there are now more and more live video conferences where actually there's a deep fake, and just ask the person to turn around 90 degrees. So that's in profile view. And then the face totally falls apart and it's like shocking because these systems are trained on frontal face images. There are so many recordings of them, but not in profile view.
So again, like having a body in 3D space, it's an advantage.
Can you please turn around?
I also would like to have a body and be now in Prague. Yeah, it's definitely, I subscribe to that now, yeah.
Yeah, and what about intuition? That was my next question, because it's also like a part of this talking about emotions and feelings inside the body. And while we're engaging with generative tools, for example, I myself started observing that I have some intuition and I was just not listening to it before. And by tuning into the body, I kind of discovered it. But it's very hard to validate it or establish it as something serious. And yeah, that what's your opinion on this? Because we had a discussion in general that's talking about emotions is it's seen as either not important or it's just too personal to make it objective in research and in science. And the artificial intelligence field is it's based in mathematics and just very like logical thinking. Then why are we talking about emotions? Why is it? What is it good for? And I think there is this need for adding another layer to this research that only looks on the logical side. And we had a discussion also with Alexa yesterday. It was, I think, that intuition actually is a term in mathematics, and then maybe there's a way how to also establish emotions and bodily feelings in AI field.
Yeah, in mathematics, it's not a term that is looked down upon. It's not like, haha, you have intuition. It's so wobbly. It's really, mathematicians say, the intuition is blah, 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 blah. And what they describe is some, I don't know, internal, immediate understanding. I think what they describe is pattern recognition, what happens in their brain, which has some parallels to machine learning because it's also about pattern recognition. I find that interesting. I would never say machine learning is like the subconscious, or machine learning systems have a subconscious, but there are parallels in terms of like speed of processing. And I think there is this psychologist, David Kahneman, who speaks of system 1 thinking and system 2 thinking. So I don't know which one is which one, but there is one that is like slow and the reasoning part and logical logical reasoning, and then the other system thinking is the fast one. So you see something far away and you immediately know what it is. So it's the system that kind of bypasses our logical and reasoning thinking. And some people say that machine learning, because machine learning is all about pattern recognition and classifying things and making predictions, not about reasoning, that there is some correlation maybe.
Yeah, but there is maybe also a correlation with the intuition in terms that during the learning process, the neural network sometimes, well, it makes kind of a decision, like which path to take. And, well, it's very, like, I'm simplifying it now, but that could maybe also be seen as kind of an intuition, but in these terms of just like a logical step, but that is not explainable, at least to us from our perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree that there are actually layers of the mind, and a logical or rational mind is just one of the layers, or just it's one of the layers. There are many sources that we could use. I particularly like Catherine Hales, which is a theoretician of media, and she describes something there are unconscious cognitive processes actually. So this is exactly this. It's part of our cognitive process, but we actually cannot control it. It's like something we could observe if we concentrate on it, but usually we don't, because it's not that layer where the explanation and reasoning works. It's more like intuition, maybe on a level of pattern recognition, that we connect things through associations or another ways of connecting, which are really very fast, and usually they don't get to the conscious level, because it makes no sense for the cognitive system actually. So maybe the things that are happening on in deep inside of neural networks, they are somehow similar to these processes, but still I think they are two very different system. The mathematical one and our it's biological. So even though we can describe it using these mathematical tools, it's pretty clear that we are not describing all of it. So we make a model of it to understand it better, but we still should remember that it's a simplification of a kind that we use as a tool to understand certain part of us, which is perfectly right, but it's still simplification. It's a model. And with the neural networks, I think that the surprising part, and I repeating myself, is that they became so complex that they are simulating ourselves so well that actually we are questioning our own depths. If we are so complex and so difficult as we thought, if there is a mathematical model that can very well simulate human language, how it's possible, actually? It's not that complicated, and it speaks like a human, which was evolving for, I don't know, millions of years. So how is that possible? And I think this is something that many people, radically disagree, that something like this simplifying model of anything human is working so well.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask if there is someone in the audience who has experience with synthetic media. If you do, you can raise your hand and tell us how it feels for you to either create it or look at it. We have very inexperienced audience, but I see one hand.
I study photography and at FAMU, and I sometimes try to experiment with the already kind of like open platforms for example, DALL-E, or I don't know. And I kind of feel always like isolated of the space and of the platform, so I don't really feel like trustful with the like processing and things happening in there. And even more when I'm like disconnected from my computer and connecting some kind of like virtual computer on Google to actually use the device. So I don't really feel really comfortable in that situation. But I also enjoy what is happening there. For example, on our workshop today with the sound engine, it was really interesting to actually hear the sounds that it's like receiving back from the loop, and I'm totally keen to explore this more. Yeah, so it's really weird to be like disconnected, but at the same time like connected to the imagination of the device. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you. This is really interesting point, and also some like entry for Alexa's glossary. I think like the feeling of being isolated and disconnected, and yeah.
And also the combination of actually of a curiosity and a fear a little bit. It means fascination, actually. This is the fascination. It's a combination of curiosity and fear. So I think most of us are fascinated by artificial intelligence or neural networks. And this is precisely this combination of emotions that, yes, we are curious what will happen, what is it, how it's working so well, and so on. But at the same time, we are connected to these, titans like Google. We never know if they get some data from us, what they are doing, with what will happen with us and with humanity in general, and so on. And they are probably the right questions, because if there is not agency of neural networks of artificial intelligence, there is for sure some kind of agency from the side of the industry side. So yes, Google, Facebook, Amazon, and China.
Yeah, and that it's quite a vulnerable position sometimes, actually, to like expose your thoughts to the systems, and then like you're waiting what it gives you back, and then you don't have it under control at all. Like, for example, if you generate images with DALL-E, then the images stay there, and you, if I'm not wrong, you don't have rights, like authors' rights over those images. And yeah, it's creating all kinds of strange emotions. And if I can share my emotion, I noticed some strange feeling somewhere in the chest, like this kind of like a tingling feeling when I'm generating some images, and I was thinking about it, like how to conceptualize this bodily experience, like what is it my body is telling me, and then I realized like it's somewhere in between, like anxiety from not knowing it all, so that's connected to the fear of missing out that Alexa mentioned, and some kind of like suspension from like being completely satisfied, because it's like when you're holding your breath and you're waiting until you can breathe, take a breath, then it starts to tingle here, and I think it's like I have this expectation what will be there in the generated image, and I'm often frustrated that it's different. So like the waiting time until it generates, it's really sometimes intense for myself. So that's my personal experience. Yeah, Maciej?
In terms of feelings, we also mentioned today that working with neural networks can simplify certain steps of creating outputs. And in connection to this and in connection to emotion, I have to say that I feel also a great deal of disappointment, because when I realized that in the dark chamber, I would create a photograph from a negative in half an hour if I'm trained, right? But it's a very linear process from A to B. And it looks comfortable to sit at the deli or Midjourney or whatever. And it seems that the result can be obtained fast, but in fact, in that half an hour, I might not get that a usable result, and I'm on a non-linear journey. So the question of expectation of effectivity might not be always met in comparison to some other methods we might be already used to. So there is also a great deal of disappointment if I expect it to be an easy way to create something.
Yeah, it looks easy from the outside, and then it's actually not really 100% true.
And you're quite de-embodied, because you are kind of either creating prompts or you are waiting. So you need to multitask something else until you get to that result, because you just can't wait. So the connection of feelings and body is, I think, very crucial to the fact, what position are you in? Or if you are sitting, standing, can you move? Could you involve more your body in that creation? And my more hallucinative ideas were that if we speak about more than human or non-human entities, if this interface could be used as an interface for communication between human and non-human entities, and how could we then incorporate body there, and how could we understand those entities?
It's definitely something I will try. Like next time while I'm waiting, I will start stretching my body, or because why not? And then I think I will then observe how it changes my next prompts. It might be interesting.
It should react, it should read your body, and if you move, that it should change the outcome.
But that can be done, actually. We can combine it with the pose recognition network.
You use a Kinect or something, and somehow.
For example, these moments, like when my body is talking to me, like with a lot of angry feelings, it's something what made me to study my PhD, because it's like 2017, 16, I'm not sure. I found the really interesting Instagram profile called Lil Miguela, well-known CGI entity yes, I can talk about her because her persona is as robotic girl, and the story around her is based on the idea that this girl thought that she is real human, and later she realized that she is a robotic girl. So everything around her is something like storytelling, like series in Instagram. I'm not sure how to describe that, but I remember the time that when I found her, something in me moved me into like deep scrolling into comment section, looking to all different kinds of emotions of people, from the totally amusement to totally hate. And I was like, okay, there's something, and something really what made me really curious, and I wanted to know more and more. So it was something what really catch me till now to my PhD project. So it's kind of funny that something like a little emotion around something can lead me to this kind of project. And it's based on just emotion, on one picture on Instagram. It's funny and scary too.
Yeah, Matti?
And this spot, I would like to give one question both to our panelists here, but also to the audience. We speak about body, and we were so far speaking about the bodily functions or movement which we consciously want to be transferred, used, and so on and so on. And it reminded me of one picture in the project. I will share the screen now for that one slide. From the affective metadata work. And this chapter is called Vacuuming Sucks, and it's generated images on smart vacuum cleaners. I found out that the cleaners like Roomba and so on can incorporate more than 13 diverse ways of mapping your space, so that they can make a map of your flat and they can clean properly your space. So that's the way how they create a map of your home. But then there is the question of what they collect. Sorry, that we have rests of food, we have the rest of our nails, all those things which are not necessarily presentable. We all know we have them, right? But the fact that I have a machine at home which knows this part of me and could eventually in future analyze my hair, my nails in terms of biological information, and could maybe share this data, was a thing which kind of haunted me for several nights when I was creating this project. And at this point, I would maybe like to ask you if you have any own experiences or specific feelings in terms of embodiment of your life being transferred to the black boxes elsewhere. This project is speaking more about the Internet of Things, but it can be connected to all the technology as well as, of course, to synthetic media.
Is there anyone who wants to answer?
No, just agree. It's a good point, because we are speaking or thinking about our bodies like something abstract, actually, something moving and speaking, but the virtual bodies can also move and speak. But this is precisely this, the biological material, the mess of our bodies. This is something radically different. And it's curious that we didn't refer to that to this moment of discussion. We didn't even think about it. So we maybe experience ourselves in a very somehow disembodied manner. And we may be already influenced by not only machines, but the whole systems we are living in and we are part of. So this is also one interesting question that we, in this discussion, but generally are thinking about evolution, about what will be in the future if we will understand ourselves in a more mechanical or machinic way or manner, but maybe it's already happening and we understand ourselves more like machines, like if we generating something, some outcomes, work, artworks or usual work, and not in this biological deep systems with losing hair, for example, which is something so natural, but we tend to forget it.
Maybe I have one example from robotics, because I think that robotics showed us how difficult it is to make something like human body, like walking on two legs with two hands and head up. Because yes, we saw a lot of videos of falling down robots, and the construction of our bodies are kind of different. And to make anthropomorphical robots with our forms, or in our forms, it's really hard. And it's somehow more interesting to see that in robotics there are also like another way how to make some robots, or it's like designing process to start from bottom up, or it's called like that. And it's like making the bodies of the robots like ants or like animals or like these creatures or entities, because the make human body in our form is so hard. So it's something what leads us to think about us, I think. Like everybody is like original, and we know how hard it's to walk into two legs. So it's even harder for the machine.
Yeah, and maybe that explains why so many people dream about artificial intelligence as this kind of like a human copy, but much better. And I think maybe it's like some subconscious desire to get rid of the body, which is actually messy, and it scares us because it also reminds us that we are gonna die eventually. So it's like this transhumanist dream, I guess. And even more makes me now want to cherish the body and like experience more, like be there inside to experience the life, not only from the head, like while I'm sitting by the computer, but like really feel it. Yeah. And unfortunately, I saw on my phone that we are reaching the end that we have of the time that we have for this discussion. But I would still like to ask if there are any questions in the audience. This is the time to pose your question, if there are any. No pressure. And I don't know if we have, like someone is checking the live chat on the live stream. I don't know if we have that option, if there are people asking questions or not. No. Okay, sorry people. So then we will have to talk in person or or contact us online. You can, I'm sure you can find contact for for us. And maybe a place for a last comment if you have, like, if there is still something that you wanted to say, some thought before you end the discussion, and yeah, please do.
No, I think there was a nice ending, actually, you know, to get back to our bodies and dance or something, so we can just
Let's get
finish the
groovy.
discussion and yes, play some music and dance.
And I think it also because it starts to be very chilly in the room, like quite cold, and that also is like this urgency from my body that reminds me I do have a body. Yeah, so thank you a lot. It was very interesting for me again to talk with you on this topic, and I'm really looking forward for our next 2 weeks of our loop, and I'm very curious what will happen. And if something will happen, and then if we produce something, then we will share it with everyone online. So yeah, I hope it was also interesting for you guys here, and thank you for watching on the live stream, and see you by the fire.